I'm sitting across from Adrian Whitfield as he slides a piece of paper across his glass desk toward me. It's my annual review, and I've been with Titan Industrial Equipment for 12 years. He's got that look, you know, the one I'm talking about. Like he's about to drop a bomb and he's enjoying every second of it. We're cutting your salary in half, he says, leaning back in his executive chair. Take it or leave it. The number on that paper is $90,000, down from $180,000. After 12 years of building this company's entire Midwest operation from scratch, I look up at him and he's actually smirking. 12 years of 60-hour weeks, 12 years of driving through blizzards to meet clients face to face. 12 years of building relationships that kept this place running while he played NBA games from his corner office. I understand, I say calmly. When does this take effect? His smirk gets wider. Immediately, I nod and fold the paper, check my pocket watch, the one my dad left me. Perfect timing, I tell him. Something flickers across his face because that's not the reaction he expected. My name is William Pierce and I'm 47 years old. What Adrian didn't know as he sat there trying to teach me my place was that 3 weeks earlier, I'd gotten a call that changed everything. Heinrich Mueller runs Mueller Engineering Systems, the biggest German industrial equipment firm looking to expand into the American market. We'd met at a trade show in Detroit, and he'd been watching my operation for years. Will, Heinrich had said during our meeting downtown, I want to offer you something different. Not just a job, a partnership. I'm opening Heritage Industrial Solutions, and I need someone who understands that business is built on relationships, not spreadsheets. I hadn't given him an answer that day. Told him I needed time to think it over. But sitting there, watching Adrian destroy 12 years of loyalty with a single piece of paper, Heinrich's offer suddenly felt like the universe had aligned perfectly. Here's something you need to understand about Adrian Whitfield. He bought Titan from the original owner's family 18 months ago through some corporate acquisition fund. Never worked a day in actual sales. Never had to explain to a plant manager why their production line was down because of equipment failure. Never stayed up all night coordinating emergency repairs to keep a client's operation running. He's one of those MBA types who thinks business is all about efficiency metrics and cost optimization. What he never figured out is that for the past 5 years, I've been running his entire Midwest operation. Not officially, of course. Officially, I'm senior sales director, but practically speaking, every major client relationship flows through me. Every crisis gets resolved by my contacts before it reaches his radar. Every distributor partnership exists because I built it, handshake by handshake, over years of showing up and delivering what I promised. Take our biggest account, Thornton Manufacturing. Their CEO, James Thornton, thinks he has a direct relationship with our company because that's how I set it up. When his automotive assembly line needs custom tooling, he calls me personally. When they're planning facility expansions, I'm the first person he talks to. Adrian gets copied on emails, sure, but James and I are the ones who actually solve problems together. Or consider Apex Automotive. I've been their equipment supplier for 8 years. I know the plant manager's kids' names. I remember when his father passed away and we expedited replacement parts during the funeral week. When their production targets change, they call me for capacity planning advice. Adrian shows up to the annual contract renewal dinner and makes small talk. But they call me when they need real solutions. This pattern repeats across our entire client base, 45 major accounts, and every single relationship runs through me. Not because I'm playing politics, but because I actually understand their operations. I remember their maintenance schedules. I know their expansion plans. I deliver what I promise when I promise it. But here's what really made Adrian vulnerable, and he had no clue about it. The distributor network that keeps his business running also works primarily with me. When clients need emergency equipment, I call Carl Stevens at Midwest Industrial Supply directly. When we need specialized installation services, Roger Walsh knows my voice and expedites everything. When equipment breaks down, Paul Richardson asks for me specifically because he knows I'll explain the technical requirements clearly and get things moving fast. These aren't just business contacts. They're relationships built over years of consistent performance. While Adrian was playing golf with other MBA types and attending networking events where people forgot his name 5 minutes later, I was building a foundation of trust based on actually getting things done. Even his own sales engineers come to me when they're stuck. When someone's confused about technical specifications, they knock on my office door. When there's a conflict with installation schedules, they ask if I can coordinate. When people are frustrated with company direction, they talk to me first. Not because I position myself as some alternative leader, but because I actually solve problems instead of just delegating them to someone else. The week after my conversation with Heinrich, I started paying closer attention to exactly how much of Adrian's business depended on me personally. It was eye-opening. I was the primary contact on probably 85% of active accounts. My cell phone was the number most clients had saved. My relationships were the ones that generated repeat business and referrals. I realized that Adrian had made a classic mistake. He'd built a company where he was the visible CEO, but I was the actual operational foundation. Remove me and everything else would collapse like a house of cards. So when he slid that salary cut across his desk with such obvious satisfaction, when he looked at me like I was some disposable employee who should be grateful for whatever scraps he threw my way, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Perfect timing, I'd said, and I meant every word. I stood up from his office that day and walked directly back to my desk. Opened my laptop and typed out a brief email to Heinrich Mueller. I accept your partnership offer. When would you like me to start? His response came back within an hour. How about Monday? It was Thursday. That afternoon, I submitted my formal resignation to HR. 2 weeks' notice as required by my contract. Professional, courteous, giving him time to transition my responsibilities. Of course, what Adrian didn't realize was that my responsibilities couldn't actually be transitioned. You can't transfer 12 years of relationship building in a 2-week handover period. When I told him I was leaving, he barely looked up from his computer screen. Fine, he said. We'll manage without you. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I spent my remaining 2 weeks being the most helpful departing employee in corporate history. I documented every active project I was working on. I created detailed client profiles with contact information and maintenance schedules. I wrote comprehensive guides for managing distributor relationships. I organized my files perfectly and left clear instructions for whoever would inherit my accounts. What I didn't do was transfer the actual relationships themselves, because you can't transfer trust. You can't document the fact that James Thornton calls me when he's frustrated because he knows I'll find solutions. You can't write a manual explaining that plant managers respect my technical judgment because I've never steered them wrong. You can't hand over 12 years of reputation built one successful project at a time. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk while Adrian was in meetings, took my personal items, my technical certifications, the photos of successful installations I'd overseen, left behind all the company property, all the client files, all the business records. I wasn't stealing anything. I was just no longer available to be the invisible infrastructure holding everything together. I shook hands with my colleagues, said goodbye to the sales engineers I'd mentored over the years, and walked out at exactly 500 on Friday afternoon. Monday morning, I started my new position as Regional Vice President at Heritage Industrial Solutions. Heinrich had restructured the partnership so I'd have equity and operational authority from day one. My new office overlooked the lake, had proper technical workstations, and a partner who valued experience over MBA theories. By Tuesday, my old phone number was disconnected. By Wednesday, things at Adrian's company started getting interesting. James Thornton called Titan's main office looking for me. The receptionist transferred him to Adrian, who had no idea why he was calling or what equipment issues he was referring to. James hung up confused and called Roger Walsh to ask if he knew what was going on at Titan. Roger called Thursday morning with questions about a custom installation timeline. Adrian took the call personally, trying to sound knowledgeable, but it became obvious within 5 minutes that he didn't understand the technical specifications for his own company's equipment. Roger asked to speak with someone who was actually familiar with the machinery. There wasn't anyone. By Friday of that first week, 6 major clients had called with technical questions and received similarly useless responses. 3 distributors called about delayed shipments that I would normally have expedited. The installation crew showed up at a job site for work that Adrian had forgotten was scheduled. I know all this because people started calling me directly, not to complain about Adrian exactly, but to ask if I knew what was happening over there. James Thornton tracked down my new number through a mutual contact and called to congratulate me on my move. Will, I don't know what's going on at Titan, he said, but it's like they forgot how to do business. Nobody there seems to understand our operation anymore. I listened sympathetically but didn't offer explanations. What was I supposed to say? That Adrian had spent 18 months taking credit for work he couldn't actually do himself. The second week was when the real problems started. One of their biggest distributors called about a payment dispute. Adrian got defensive and rude, suggesting they should be more patient about money. Carl Stevens called me that afternoon. Will, I don't know what's happening over there, but that's not how we're used to being treated. If this is their new approach to business, we might need to reconsider our partnership. I kept my professional boundaries. That sounds like a conversation you should have with them directly, Carl. I'm not involved with their business anymore. But of course, I also mentioned that Heritage was looking for reliable distribution partners, and would he be interested in discussing potential opportunities? Now here's where people sometimes misunderstand what happened next. I didn't sabotage Adrian's business. I didn't steal his clients or badmouth his company. I simply started building relationships in my new role the same way I'd always built relationships, by being competent, reliable, and genuinely helpful. When James Thornton mentioned he was frustrated with the lack of technical support from his current supplier, I listened. When he asked if Heritage might be interested in discussing his equipment needs, I said we'd be happy to have that conversation. When Carl Stevens called to congratulate me on my new venture and asked about our distribution capabilities, I was honest about what we could offer. Within 3 weeks of leaving Titan, Heinrich and I had secured meetings with 8 of Adrian's former clients. Not because I recruited them away, but because they sought us out after becoming increasingly frustrated with the service they were receiving. The thing about building genuine relationships is that people remember competence. When they're getting poor service from one provider, they naturally think about someone who consistently delivered results. It's just human nature. By the end of my first month at Heritage, we'd signed 5 new major accounts. All of them happened to be companies I'd worked with previously, companies that had grown frustrated with Titan's inability to provide the technical support they'd grown accustomed to. The tipping point came when Thornton Manufacturing made the switch. James called Adrian personally to explain they'd be moving their business to a supplier that better understood their operational requirements. Adrian apparently became hostile, accusing James of being influenced by a former employee. James called me that afternoon, actually laughing. Well, that man just proved exactly why we made the right decision. He spent 15 minutes yelling at me about employee loyalty and competitive ethics, but he couldn't answer a single question about our actual equipment specifications. It's like he never understood our operation in the first place. That's when I realized what was really happening. Adrian hadn't just lost me as an employee. He'd lost the person who'd been translating between his corporate theories and the actual requirements of running an industrial operation. Without me there to bridge that gap, clients were getting direct exposure to his incompetence. The stories started reaching me through industry contacts. How Adrian had completely mishandled a crisis at an automotive plant because he didn't understand the emergency repair protocols. How he'd promised delivery timelines that were technically impossible because he didn't grasp the manufacturing lead times. How he'd alienated a major distributor by questioning their markup structure without understanding industry standards. Each failure made my former clients more appreciative of the service they were now receiving from Heinrich and me. Each conversation with Adrian reminded them why they'd actually valued working with Titan when I was there to make everything function properly. You know what really got to me, though? It wasn't just about business. I've got a son, Andrew, who's a junior at State studying engineering. College tuition these days, let me tell you, it's not what it used to be. When Adrian cut my salary in half, he wasn't just attacking my professional pride. He was threatening my ability to support my family, to keep my promises to my kid about getting him through school debt-free. My father worked 30 years at the same plant, believed in loyalty and putting in your time. He taught me that if you work hard and do right by people, they'll do right by you. Adrian's salary cut wasn't just about money, it was about respect. It was about recognizing that experience and relationships have value in this business. 8 weeks after I left, I ran into one of my former sales engineers at an industry conference. He looked exhausted. "Will, it's complete chaos," he said. "Adrian keeps asking us to handle things you used to do, but none of us have your relationships. Half the distributors won't return our calls. Clients constantly ask where you went, and Adrian just keeps saying we need to figure it out ourselves." I felt genuinely sorry for him and the other engineers caught in Adrian's mess. They were good people trapped in an impossible situation. "Are you looking at other opportunities?" I asked. "Everyone is," he said. "But Adrian's threatening legal action if anyone else leaves, non-compete clauses and all that." That's when I knew Adrian was truly panicking. Empty legal threats are what incompetent managers resort to when they realize they've lost control of a situation they never actually understood. Heinrich and I started getting calls from talented people at Titan, not because I was recruiting them, but because word had spread about our success and positive work environment. When people are trapped in a failing situation, they naturally gravitate toward opportunities that look more stable and rewarding. We hired 4 of Adrian's former engineers over the next 6 weeks. All of them had given proper notice. All of them had been released from any legitimate contractual obligations. All of them were eager to work somewhere their technical expertise would be valued rather than taken for granted. With each new hire, we gained deeper knowledge about accounts that were struggling at Titan. Not proprietary information or trade secrets, but general industry knowledge and technical expertise that these professionals had developed over years of experience. The final collapse came when Apex Automotive made their decision. Their plant manager called me personally to explain their reasoning. "Will, we've been trying to make it work with Titan for 3 months now, but it's like dealing with amateurs." Nobody there understands our production requirements or our maintenance schedules. We're paying premium rates for substandard service. When Heinrich and I signed the Apex account, Heritage became the fastest growing industrial equipment supplier in the region. In 4 months, we'd gone from startup to major regional player. We had 38 employees, distribution partnerships across 12 states, and a client waiting list that stretched 3 months out. All because Adrian Whitfield thought cutting my salary in half would teach me my place. The last time I saw him was at the Industrial Equipment Expo 6 months after I'd left. He looked terrible, stressed, desperate, defensive. When he spotted me across the exhibition floor, he actually tried to approach me. "Will, we need to talk," he said. I was polite but firm. "I don't think there's anything for us to discuss, Adrian. You destroyed my business," he said, loud enough that other industry professionals started paying attention. I looked at him calmly. "I didn't destroy anything, I just stopped fixing everything." That was the moment he finally understood what had really happened. I could see it in his face. For 18 months, he'd been running a company where his most important function was staying out of my way while I made everything work. When he drove me away with that insulting salary cut, he lost the only person who'd been preventing his incompetence from becoming visible to his clients. He didn't lose his business because I sabotaged it. He lost it because he'd never actually been running it. The conversation around us had gone quiet. Other professionals in our industry were witnessing a perfect illustration of why some businesses succeed and others fail. It had nothing to do with corporate warfare or employee revenge. It had everything to do with understanding that sustainable success comes from genuine competence and authentic relationships, not from titles and MBA theories. I excused myself politely and rejoined Heinrich's conversation with a potential client. 8 months later, I heard through industry contacts that Adrian had been forced to sell what remained of Titan to a larger equipment firm. The Titan brand name disappeared entirely. The legacy that the original family had built over decades was gone. But here's what people don't always understand about this story. I never set out to destroy Adrian or his business. I never planned some elaborate revenge scheme. I simply refused to continue propping up someone who treated my 12 years of dedication as disposable while depending entirely on my work to maintain his company's reputation. The most devastating revenge isn't what you do to someone. It's what happens when you stop doing everything for them. Today, 2 years later, Heinrich and I run the most successful industrial equipment operation in 3 states. We have 38 employees, distribution partnerships across 15 states, and a client waiting list that extends 4 months out. Industry Weekly featured us in an article about American-German business partnerships that are reshaping manufacturing support services. But here's the real twist. 3 months ago, I got an unexpected call from a corporate headhunter. Turns out the investment group that bought Titan's assets was looking for someone to rebuild their Midwest operation. Someone with my exact background and relationship network. They offered me $320,000 to return as regional director, complete operational control, equity participation, the works. They wanted me to fix what Adrian had broken. The irony was perfect. Here was the universe offering me the chance to take over the exact operation I'd built, to have complete authority over what had once been Adrian's company. And that's when I realized something important about myself. I didn't want it, not because I wasn't still frustrated about how Adrian had treated me, not because I thought he deserved some kind of professional redemption, but because taking that role would mean spending my time and energy rebuilding something that someone else had destroyed instead of continuing to build something positive with Heinrich. I appreciate the offer, I told the headhunter, but I've spent 12 years of my career making someone else look good while they took credit for my work. I'm not interested in doing that again, even with better compensation and recognition. You see, the best revenge isn't getting power over someone who wronged you. It's building something so successful that their opinion of you becomes completely irrelevant. That salary cut Adrian gave me 2 years ago was supposed to teach me my place. Instead, it taught me my worth. It forced me to see that I'd been settling for less than I deserved because I'd confused loyalty with weakness. My son Andrew graduated last month, debt-free, just like I promised him. He's starting his career as a mechanical engineer, and he's already learned something it took me 47 years to figure out. Your value isn't determined by how other people treat you, it's determined by what you're willing to accept. Heinrich and I are opening our 4th office next year. We're looking at expansion into the Southeast, maybe Texas after that. The clients who followed me from Titan have become some of our biggest advocates, referring other companies to us because they know we deliver what we promise. But what I'm most proud of isn't the growth or the revenue or the industry recognition. It's that we've built something based on the old school values my father taught me: competence, reliability, and treating people with respect. In a business world that seems to value MBA theories over actual experience, we've proven that the fundamentals still matter. That young engineer I mentioned, the one who looked so exhausted at the conference, he's now our head of technical services. 3 of the other guys who left Titan are key members of our team. We've created something that values experience and rewards loyalty. The kind of company we all wished we'd been working for all along. Last week, I heard Adrian got a job as a regional sales manager at a mid-sized equipment firm. Middle management, decent salary, probably learning to actually do the work instead of just taking credit for it. I don't wish him any harm. Sometimes getting knocked down is the only way some people learn to stand on their own feet. Heinrich told me something the other day that really stuck with me. He said, Americans have something that's hard to find in business these days, the willingness to build real relationships based on trust and competence. He said that's why our partnership works so well, because we both understand that sustainable success comes from taking care of your people and your clients, not from playing corporate games. Maybe he's right. Maybe what happened with Adrian wasn't just about one incompetent boss making one bad decision. Maybe it was about 2 different approaches to business, and the market deciding which one actually creates value. If this story resonated with you, it's probably because you've been there yourself. Maybe you're there right now working for someone who doesn't appreciate your experience, who treats you like you're disposable after years of dedication. If that's the case, let me tell you something. Your worth isn't determined by how other people treat you. It's determined by what you choose to build when you finally decide you deserve better. Don't wait for permission to value yourself. The market will reward competence and authentic relationships, even when your current employer won't.